Okay, so this will be a short tutorial on buttons and just creating 2D buttons in general and how we do that. I'm going to probably do like a series of these short videos here today, so they'll all be very contained little elements. So here we go. I'm creating a new 2D project in Unity, calling it buttons, and here's my path, and that's pretty much it. So I will create a new project, and hopefully one will load. We shall see. There we go. Okay, so we know we're in 2D mode again because there's no horizon line, which is an important thing to do as we go through this. We want to make sure we're doing everything in 2D today. Okay, so here's our camera. If we want to add, if we want to just play for a second, we'll see that all we've got is this ugly blue screen, which I am going to change by selecting camera and changing the color. Drag that back. There we go. So I'll just make it white, and that way in our game view it's a white thing. So if we right click over here in the hierarchy and go down to UI, we will be able to create a button, which is very nice. And notice it created us a few things over here. It created us a canvas, a button, and an event system. And all these are super important for using buttons for interaction. First thing we're going to look at is our canvas and how it was created. There's a few different ways we can use the canvas in Unity, and one of them is just like a complete overlay, which is what I want to do for this one. We would use this for like menus and things like that, not necessarily because you can you can place these canvases in 3 dimensions, like in 3-dimensional space, so that your character wouldn't encounter it until he got to that portion of your level. But for this case, maybe it's just like a splash screen or a menu or something like that where we want it to be always on top, and so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to change this from screen space overlay to screen space camera, which means it's always going to be in view of a camera. And right here, the render camera is set to none, and all we need to do is link up our main camera with that. So over here on the left, we can click on main camera, drag it over to a render camera, and now we've got it linked up, and we've got a nice button down here, which is really good. But one last thing I want to do on the canvas is I want to come over here and change the scale mode. And I'm going to change it to scale with screen size. We have a few different options here. Scaling with screen size is going to be probably the one that makes the most sense for what most people are doing. That way, if you're doing for iOS or Android or PC or OS X or whatever, most of your stuff will stay on the screen. And it's going to give you, what do you want your resolution to be, the reference resolution to be. We'll just leave it alone for now. I think that's fine. But if you need to tweak that, go ahead and tweak it. Here's our button, and if we hit play, there's our button. Doesn't do anything yet. We will fix that here shortly, but at least we do have a button on the screen, and it looks like as I'm clicking on it that something's happening. But let's take a little bit of a closer look here. If I expand our button, we've got our text object here, and this is the text that's on it, so we can change it from button to my great button. Something like that. Whoa, my great button. And we can make it say whatever we want. And we can we'll do more with UI later on, but for right now, we're not going to worry about changing the text of the button in a script. But you can definitely do that for sure. But what we want to do is have something in our script, like make some kind of function call so that we can get a hold of this button press, because right now it's not going to do us a whole lot of good, but we want to be able to respond to somebody clicking my great button. So down our project here, I'm just going to create a C# script, and we can just call it button click. How about just button click? And I'm going to drag that on top of my canvas. So I select my canvas, drag it over, now button click is on there. I'll open this up in Mono and see what happens. Here's our button click, and we've got, let's see, there you go. I was going to try and make it a little bigger. So we've got our basic functions in here. We're going to get rid of these because we don't need them. We're going to put one function in here, which will be a public void button clicked. And for now, inside of this, we'll just put a debug button clicked. I chose 3 exclamation points. You can put as many or as few as you want. Doesn't matter. Okay, so button clicked. Now we'll go back to Unity, and with our button selected, Now we can come down here, and there's this on-click piece over here down in the bottom right. And these are the list of functions that are going to get called when somebody clicks that button. And so you can call as many as you want. We're going to add our great function that we just clicked on or created. So the first thing we got to do is add our object. If you click on the little circle, it will give you a list of scenes in your, or a list of objects in your scene. And what it's looking for is the object that has the script on it. And we attached our script to Canvas, so we'll click on Canvas. And then over here, after Canvas is set up here, we'll be able to go to this function dropdown and find our class, button click, and then find our function, which is button clicked. All right, so now they're linked up. Remember, all we had in there was a debug.log, so hopefully when I run it and I start clicking, we'll see down here button clicked. All right, so now they're linked up, and we can put whatever kind of code that we want to put in there. Maybe we'll do something really quick, like something useful. Let's just, instead of migrate button, let's switch this thing to start game. All right, so maybe we want to load a different scene where our game is at. So, and we want to click this, we'll jump to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and it's going to ask us what do we want to call it. We can call it start menu. How's that? And then we're going to create a new scene. In here, we'll call it game, for lack of a better term. And let's click on game real quick. And I'm just going to quickly go through and make a scene with some text on it so we know that we've switched scenes. I'm going to create a UI text. Text will be migrate game. And then remember, we have to change how our canvas is looking. So we'll go to screen space camera. We'll drag in our camera, and we'll change the UI to scale with screen size. And then we'll be able to move our text over here somewhere. And I'm not really too worried about what this looks like at the moment. I just want to get a separate scene in here that we can jump to. All right, so now if we go back, so we have two scenes now. We've got our start menu, which has this button, and we have our game, which is this. What we want to have happen is when we click on this button, we want to load our game scene. So I will take a look at our code, and instead of doing this debug.log, I mean, we can still put that in there, but we want to load our scene called game. In order to do that, we're going to have to do using Unity Engine .scene management, and that's going to allow us to do something like scene manager. It'll give us access to the scene manager. .load scene, and we want to load the name of the scene that we created, which I just called it game, and make sure it's, you know, case sensitive and all that sort of stuff. It's got to be exact when you put it in strings like this. All right, we'll save it, and then we'll go back, and then before I run, if we run, let's just see, it's not going to work, and I'll show you why. If I hit start game, it's going to blow up, and it's going to tell us down here at the bottom. I think that's visible. Yes. Couldn't load scene game because it hasn't been loaded in the build settings. Okay, then let's load it into the build settings. If we go to File, Build Settings, let me drag this over. These are the scenes that we're going to build. Right now it's empty, so it's only going to build the current one. But what we can do is I'm just going to shift click on these two scenes and drag them up. So these are our two scenes. I'm going to put my start menu at the top because I like having it up there. Really doesn't matter that much. And notice that we've got our like the strings of our scenes, and we also have these indexes over here, 0 and 1. So you can refer to these scenes either way, by their string name or by their index. So if you have like level 1, level 2, you might want to do something like, you know, level ++ at some point when you're loading your scenes. So you can use these indexes to kind of help you through. But anyways, now that these things are in our scene, I don't really have to do anything in here because I want to hit the play button. So I'm just going to close this. And now when I hit play and I hit start game, now it jumps to migrate game, which is the second scene that we have. All right, and we can put all these buttons to click back and forth and, you know, navigate between them. But that's sort of the gist of it. So remember, 4 buttons. You right click and create a UI with your button, and then that's going to give you a canvas, an event system. With your canvas, you want to make sure that you understand what your render mode and scale modes are doing. In this example, we set them to screen space camera. And in that case, we need to drag our main camera over to this property over here. And then our UI scale mode, I put scale with screen size. It just makes it a little bit easier for what we were trying to do. And then in our code, or actually in our button, we had to select our function that we want to call. And then in our code, this is all that we had to have is a public function. That way we're able to link it up inside of Unity. So this was a short little tutorial on how to work with buttons.